Um, so I think we want to start the meeting. Trish, I believe you are the chair of
Yes.
the
we
Finance
can do
Committee.
this. Yeah, I'll make a motion to open this meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, meeting is come to session.
Okay, this is a Finance Committee meeting of the Town of Islip Industrial Development Agency and the Town of Islip Economic Development Corporation. The members have the financial reports year-to-date in front of them for both the agency and the corporation. I think we should start with the agency. So the town, you should have a balance sheet and a revenue and expense control report for the agency. That's
Yep.
the agency is the one that has more data in it because it's a much more active organization than the Economic Development Corporation. So if you're looking at the balance sheet, essentially it shows the assets of the agency during the course of the year. And I just want to point towards one item on the balance sheet to bring to your attention. We have a very healthy fund balance of $4.58 million. And just prior to us getting on this meeting, I was talking to Joe Ludwig, our controller, and also the chief financial officer of the agency and the corporation, that we have taken steps to start putting that money to use. We've already encumbered, so not part of that $4.58 million. Correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, is the money which we've encumbered for the airport, for the terminal expansion. So some time ago, a few years ago,
Yeah.
we set aside money, encumbered it for the terminal. At the time, it was going to be an FIS, a customs facility. That has now been changed to the West Wing expansion, gate expansion. So that money is not even included in the $4.58 million fund balance. But what is included is $1 million that the board authorized for the sewers in Central Islip. Most recently, at our last meeting, you authorized $250,000 for the loan and grant fund for the small businesses that were impacted by COVID. And I do want to report to you that we are starting to see those applications come in, heavily leaning towards the grant. We expect that we're going to see some very ample participation in that program. And so that will start pulling down on that 4.58 million, but that's what we should be using this money for, is to help move the economy along with capital projects and with, in this particular case, an emergency loan and grant fund.
So I'm sorry, Bill, to interrupt. So that 4.5 million.
Yes.
So that's after the money that's been encumbered, or that's?
It's not inclusive. So if you
So how much do we
choose
have
to look
left
at
then?
it in this way, is that there's another $950,000 in addition to that 4.58 that is technically not part of the fund balance because it's been encumbered. It hasn't been spent, but it has been officially set aside to be used.
Okay, so my question is this. Let's just subtract the money that's been encumbered, okay? What's left in the fund balance?
It's 4.58 million.
Thank you. And Bill, we've gone down to as low as 2 million, right, at times?
I mean, we've been healthy for a number of years, but I mean, I actually don't even recall. It's been too many years since I first took over, but we've been some years ago below 2 million.
Yeah,
But we've had a very active 5 or 6 years, and we've been able to build up that fund balance. As you know, this is the money that we receive from closing IDA transactions. So these are all fees that the IDA takes in,
right. Okay,
not
thank you.
taxpayer money.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions on the balance sheet?
Nope.
Okay, if you just want to look at the year-to-date revenue and expense control, it pretty much tells the general picture. We take in money through our pilots, payment in lieu of taxes contracts, but 100% of that money that comes in gets dispersed to the taxing jurisdictions exactly in the same manner as tax revenue. So we've taken in 23.246 million, and we've dispersed out 21.487. And I'm going to ask Joe, I assume that remaining 1.759 is just in transition. It's probably fairly close to being sent out to the taxing jurisdictions, Joe?
Yeah, I would have to double check to find exactly when we're going to be releasing it, but it should be done relatively soon.
Yeah, so just to understand the mechanics, we take this in mostly at the deadline of January 10th and May 31st, same schedule that tax payments are due. We also had a number of projects, a bit more than usual, that were paying late, primarily because of the COVID emergency. There was some confusion. Some of those pilot payments, or the companies thought that the payment schedule was extended like taxes were, but it wasn't. So we received some late payments. So I'm going to guess that that's why we still haven't dispersed the 1.759.
Okay.
All right.
When a pilot expires or terminates, case in point, I know the Heartland one was set to expire soon. Your staff, do they renegotiate a new pilot, or does it just go on the tax rolls?
Typically, when a pilot agreement, in general, when a pilot agreement ends, the project gets terminated, all of the taxable value for that property goes back on the taxable rolls and they start making tax payments. The Heartland project is a different animal. We first entered into that with a 10-year agreement starting in 2002. Then that pilot agreement was extended in 2012 to 2022. And then the board will have to determine, starting, sometime leading up to 2022, whether they want to extend that agreement or whether the taxable value will go back on the rolls. It's that's a very complicated example. That was for the underlying land and the buildings that were on the property at the time that the owner took title from the state. And there was, and there still remains, a tax challenge, an assessment challenge on that property that has not been settled. So the whole reason for entering into that agreement for Heartland was to give some certainty to that issue. So you didn't see tax payments go up and then comes back down again with a successful certiorari challenge. Just to give you an idea, the value on that property for assessment purposes is, we've got it valued, if you convert assessment to market value, at $100 million. And the buyer paid $20 million for it in 2002. And so at the time that he paid $20 million for it, we had it valued as if it was $100 million value. That's
All right.
the uncertainty that pushed us into this agreement, where we have tax revenues coming from it as if it's about $55 million in value.
All right, guys, let's just stick with the finance meeting stuff.
Okay, so the only other thing I want to point out here, in terms of revenues and expenditures, we're really just, we're routine in terms of our expenditures throughout the year based upon our budget. And for revenue purposes, we, as you know, we always budget very low for revenues, just in case they don't come in, just in case activity levels drop off. We've had wide ranges of activity levels in revenues, but we are currently 450,396 above our projected revenues for the year.
Okay.
That's nice and healthy. It's a good sign, but activity is expected to slow down because of the virus. But I expect we have a number of projects we expect to close before the end of the year. So I think we'll see some very healthy revenues in addition to the ones you see there already.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to say about the IDA.
Do we need to approve these? Vote on them?
No, it's not a budget, Councilwoman. It's, this is really informational, just so that you can stay on top of the
Okay.
expenditures and the revenues of the agency.
All
So,
right.
but we do need to look at the same reports for the Economic Development Corporation. Hopefully this won't take very long. This is a not very active corporation. Essentially, the business of the corporation is to provide tax-exempt bond financing for not-for-profit capital projects. We see very little activity, and so we have had no activity this year to date. We're still expecting that at some point in time, the Brentwood Community Ambulance is going to expand their facilities up in Brentwood, and would be financing it through a tax-exempt bond issued by the agency and paid back by the ambulance district. But we still have no activity there, so we've had no revenue. We have, in terms of available balance, we have 21,649 available. And as a result of that small amount of a fund balance, we've suspended all activities in terms of expenditures for that. As you may remember, even before the COVID virus hit, we were not planning on providing funds to the annual concert in the park at Heckscher for the Islip Arts Council.
Wait, we're not doing that, Bill?
We weren't doing it even before the emergency virus. So the concert didn't take place, but we were already had already pulled out of funding for that. At $21,000, we can't go below that. It's not recommended by our outside accounting firm, and we do have state mandated expenses of doing an audit review on an annual basis. So we're holding on to that reserve. We're hoping to get a fee from the Brentwood Legion Ambulance, but until that time, the only thing we can afford to do is do the annual audit.
Right.
But that's it. You can see on the expense and control report, we've had no revenue and no expenses
Okay.
year to date.
Thank you, Bill.
That's all I need to say.
Does anybody have any questions? No? Hearing none? Can I make a motion to end this meeting?
Second.
Okay, a motion by, was that by Ron Meyer, and then a second by Jim O'Connor?
Sure.
All in favor? Opposed? Okay, meeting is closed. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a good day, everybody.